Welcome back to Ali and the Golden Eagle by Wayne Grover. Chapter 2, New Friends. It had been a week since I discovered the canyon in the village nearly 5,000 feet below the rim. I had 2 days off. My rover was packed with food and water, and I had a new windshield. Dawn was just breaking as I drove over the dusty, rock-strewn desert, and this time I knew where I was going, and I was prepared. Once I reached the rim of the canyon, I drove to the spot I had discovered the week before. There was a deep crevice in the canyon wall that started at the rim, splitting the rock wall straight down and ending above the village. It seemed to lead all the way down to the canyon floor near the village. I had brought several hundred feet of nylon climbing rope and rappel equipment to help me drop into the canyon. In my backpack, I also had full rock climbing gear. After blocking the rover's wheels, I fastened the rope to the front bumper, threw the rope over the canyon wall, and watched it drop straight down. I had never rappelled so far before. Going down would be easy because gravity would do all the work. But coming back up would be tricky and tiring. It would require using the rope brake, and I would have to set hand and toe holds on the rocky face so that I could climb back up. I looked carefully at the chasm beneath my feet for possible landing places on the rocks below. After connecting the rope through the metal loops on my body harness, I took one last look at the rover, checked that the handbrake was properly set and the wheel blocks were securely in place, then went over the side. I dropped straight down for about 30 feet before my boots hit the rocky wall when I tightened the grip on my handbrakes. Loosening the grip, I shoved off and dropped another 30 feet. Like a bouncing ball on a string, I dropped slowly into the canyon. To descend the nearly vertical rock face safely, I had to pound steel pins called pitons into small cracks where they were attached to snap links to hold climbing ropes. Since I carried only 2 300-foot rope segments, I had to rappel down, set new pins, pull my rope through the links, and let it drop to me each time I reached its end. This way, I could work my way down in segments until I reached a place I could manage without ropes. It was easy with the right equipment and my years of climbing experience, but I was alone, and that was dangerous. 2 of my British climbing companions had been planning to join me, but they had to cancel their plans when they were called into work at the last minute. About 4,000 feet down, I reached an area I could descend without a rope, and carefully worked my way down for another 1,000 feet, where I could walk almost normally. Before me stretched an oasis of green, separated by rocky ledges where ancient terraces were cut into the sloping valley floor. As I looked in wonder at the fertile gardens growing on the flattened terraces carved into the steep slopes, a small voice called out in Arabic, "Who are you?" I turned and saw a boy dressed in a white robe wearing a red checkered head cover. He looked frightened. "I am an American. I've come to visit your village," I said in my best Arabic. It was the first time I had tried my freshly learned Arabic since I graduated from the Language Institute prior to my assignment, and I was able to converse with the boy quite well. "American? What is American?" the boy asked, still not sure of the stranger in his valley. "I come from a land far away. It is called America. I am in Arabia to work for an American company that builds and flies airplanes. Where did you come from? He asked. I pointed toward the rim of the canyon and said, I came from up there. I live a few kilometers from this canyon. Watching the puzzled look on the boy's face, I realized he had probably never been out of this valley and had no idea about the rest of the world. My name is Wayne Grover. What are you called? My name is Ali Zambir, son of Mustafa. Well, Ali Zambir, it is nice to meet you, I said, as I offered my hand. He paused, still unsure, then stuck his hand out to shake mine. I would like to visit your village, Ali. Can you take me there? Still uncertain about my foreign face and American clothes, he thought about my request before replying. Yes, I will bring you to my father. He is the village chief. He led me a long way, descending rocky slopes as we passed beautiful green terraces, heavily laden with vegetables, pumpkins, gourds, and date trees. Each terrace had water running to it from a groove cut into the rocks above, where natural springs ran from the rock. I have never seen a man like you before, and your clothes are so strange, said Ali as we made our way down a long slope to his village. I saw odd-looking structures made from what looked like brown mud. Each had a high, flat roof and a tower that stood well above the main house. I saw clothes drying in the sun on the flat roofs as women, dressed all in black, busied themselves with their day's work. You live in a nice village, Ali, I said. Shukran, he replied, which means thank you in Arabic. As we entered the only street in the village, many people came out to look at me. Women hid behind doors and peeped out, but the men watched me openly. When we arrived at a large house built into the side of the cliff, Ali called out, Father! Father! An older man came out, greeted the boy, then asked about me. This is Mr. Wayne Grover from America, he told his father. He came down the mountain like a spider on a long web. I saw it myself. The man looked at me and smiled. Welcome to my home, Wayne Grover. My name is Mustafa bin Abdul. Will you please take tea with me? He turned and spoke to a woman peering from the roof. Heyra, bring us tea. I guessed she must be his wife, or one of his wives, since Muslim men can legally have up to 4 wives. My first day in the secluded village was filled with new sights, scents, and sounds as my hosts entertained me. Most of the male children came to look at me, followed closely by their curious fathers. The women and girls kept their distance. After hours of questions about the world I lived in, I felt hopelessly unable to explain. How could I describe cities and skyscrapers, superhighways and supermarkets, TV and moon rockets, to a group of men and boys who, with a few exceptions, had never left their remote village? Mustafa told me that he and 3 other men had been to Kamis Mushat, a local city built on the old spice trade route, traveled by camel-borne wanderers. Even so, they had seen only a few modern things. Just 5 years earlier, Arabia was still a remote, mysterious place with barely any of the things we Westerners take for granted. For the most part, the villagers could hardly imagine such wonders. They listened to me, but laughed and rolled their eyes when I tried to explain some of the inventions of the modern world. They had all seen an occasional plane fly high overhead, but that was just accepted as part of the evil world from which they remained hidden. After we finished our tea, Ali's father, using the Arabic word for Mr., a sign of respect, said, Mr. Wayne, it would be an honor if you would allow me to take you on a tour of our village and show you how our people live." "Mr. Mustafa, I would like that very much," I answered. Then it was my turn to marvel. Their houses were hundreds of years old, built and rebuilt from mud bricks with straw to hold them together. The stones lining the street were worn down from centuries of being walked on. The villagers had burros, sheep, and goats, and all were healthy and well fed. Almost everything was made by hand from the natural resources found in their isolated valley. Mustafa showed me the way his people grew their own food on the rocky soil. I was amazed at the size and richness of the produce. They baked their own bread, ground from wheat they grew on the terraces. They had a sweet, jam-like substance from crushed berries grown nearby and wild honey from beehives they kept. Their needs were simple, and they met them well. They seemed to live in harmony with the earth's cycles, farming, preserving, and recycling what they used. I was deeply impressed as I ended my visit. I knew I had a long climb back up to the rim to where I had left the Land Rover, and I would have to hurry to make it to the top before dark. "Mr. Wayne," Mustafa said, "I will show you a way to climb up the cliffs without using your rope. It is dangerous, but for an experienced man like yourself, you can return to the top much faster by climbing than pulling yourself up with your rope." As we walked up a rocky slope toward the place I was to start my ascent, I saw 3 Arabian men with large birds sitting on their arms. "Do you train falcons here?" I asked. Mustafa smiled proudly. "Yes, Mr. Wayne, I myself have 5 of the best hunting birds. Do you know about falconry?" "Not much," I answered truthfully, "but I would like to learn more about it." "Mr. Wayne, please visit us again soon, and I will show you how our falcons perform. You will see what a real Arabian and his falcons can do." "Thank you, Mr. Mustafa. I look forward to coming again soon." He led me to the base of the huge split in the rock wall and showed me where he and a few village men had created a way to reach the world above. As we stood at the entrance to the upward climb, he said, "Only a few men and I from our village have ever climbed to the world above our valley. We tried to bring supplies back from Khamis Mushat, but the dangerous climb down was not worth the risk for the few items we could safely carry. So our villagers still live the way our ancestors taught us to." "Be very careful, Mr. Wayne. There are a few dangerous places in the cleft in the wall. About halfway up, you will have to squeeze into a narrow place in the rock that is just big enough to pass. Once past that point, you will find several places where we have built handholds. I bid you a safe climb and return soon to our valley. You are welcome here." "Thank you, Mr. Mustafa. At the week's end, I will have 2 days free from my work. I would very much like to return then with your permission and see more of your valley." "Oh, Father," begged Ali, "please say yes. We can learn much about the world from Mr. Wayne." "Of course, my son. I also look forward to learning more about the outside world. You can meet Mr. Wayne when he returns and bring him to me." Mustafa had assigned Ali, his youngest, to look after me in the village because the older sons worked with him in the fields. I noticed Ali's brother Fouad frown when Mustafa asked Ali to meet me. Fouad, the oldest boy, probably about 18 or 19, was as large as I was and quite handsome. His brother Abdul, perhaps 16, was tall and thin. Sensing a little jealousy, Mustafa explained, "I would ask my firstborn son to meet you and look after you, but he is a man and very strong. I need him and Abdul to work beside me. Fouad will become village chief when I retire." "I understand, Mr. Mustafa," I said, noticing Fouad stand a little taller, basking in his father's praise. "Well then," I said, "Ali, I will return when the sun rises 6 days from now." "I will be here, Mr. Wayne. May Allah be with you until we meet again." I entered the narrow chamber of rocky walls and soon was enjoying the challenge of finding the way back to the top. Within 30 minutes, I found the narrow split in the rock that was about 75 feet from bottom to top. It looked very narrow as I tried to squeeze my body into it and climb higher. It was like being cramped into a chimney, and for a moment, I felt very uneasy. I thought about turning back, but I knew it was too late to get back down before dark, so I forced my body upward. Both my chest and back dragged against the hard, rocky wall as I struggled to push upward. I had to breathe shallowly, because when my lungs filled with air, I was stuck where I was. My heart was pounding, and my lungs burned from the effort as I used my last strength to get out of the narrow passage. I knew it was no problem for a smaller man, but for someone my size, it was very confining. The rest of the climb was easier. When I pulled myself onto the flat rim and stood up, darkness had already hidden Ali's village from sight, but I could see firelights flickering in the blackness. It had been a day of adventure and excitement, and I looked forward to seeing Ali, Mustafa, and the villagers again. After walking to my rover nearby, I drove across the desert toward my house in the compound. What had started as a mountain climbing trip into the canyon had brought me new friends. I could hardly wait to visit them again.